Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. We broadcast 2 hours, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Central Time. So if you'd like to call us, that's the time to call, 866-582-9933. 866-582-9933. Nathan is engineering the broadcast in Minnesota at GCN. I'm Vincent Finelli. Rick Miller's with us, Dr. Richard Allen Miller. Welcome, Rick.
Good morning, Vincent. I need a little more volume, please.
All right, let me just see if we can do that. How about that?
That's
all right.
Better, thank you.
Hey, Rick, I was thinking about, I was actually frosted, and I was thinking about the Chinese space station that was coming crashing to Earth, and the Chinese said, yeah, it's coming down, but we don't know where, no clue, and we'll let you know, within an hour of when it's going to crash. And so we've got a satellite or a space station the size of a school bus, that was hurling to Earth, and no one knew where it was going to land. And in Michigan, thought that it might land there, and they pulled out all the stops to get the government ready for this crash. And so I looked up, how much junk is out there, orbiting planet Earth. Well, it looks like there are millions, and 170 million pieces of debris, at least 170 million. Now, some of them are larger, some of them are little flecks, the size of chips of paint. Some of them are pretty big. And Rick, we didn't do that. You didn't do that. I didn't do that. I don't know anybody else who was involved in littering the environment just outside our planet. And here we are. Yeah. And it all comes down. All of this stuff will start descending toward Earth. Now, some of it will burn up on the way down, causing more pollution. And some of it will not burn up on the way down and crash into Earth. Some of it's toxic, some of it's radioactive. And yet, we've done that. And no one knows exactly where all these pieces are going to land. No one. But yet we've done this. Rick, I guess it's a rhetorical question. How do we stop this nonsense? How do we stop the insanity of pollution? I know that these engineers said, geez, it's kind of tough keeping these satellites in space. We've got to keep them in a certain box. They say within these parameters, this is exactly the box that's, this a box that they're imagining, not a literal box, but a box that this satellite has to stay in. Because if it's too high, it leaves orbit. If it's too low, it falls out of orbit. So they have to keep it in this box. And so they engineer these jets of gas to push the satellite back into the box when it wanders out of the area that they want it to stay in, so it'll stay up there. So they know it will fall down. They're 100% certain it will fall down. And when does it fall down? When they run out of gas. And that's a finite amount. So the engineers have to figure out they have X amount of pressurized gas to keep the satellite exactly where they want it, or it'll fall down. And then they have to judiciously use that gas to position the satellite where they want it, and when they run out of this gas, the satellite falls down.
You realize they have a law for littering Burger King hamburger wrap. But this nonsense, I remember when I was a little kid and I made a rocket. It was actually a pipe bomb, but I called it a rocket. And it took off out of the gravel pit, and I eventually found it 2 blocks over, had gone through the roof of a neighbor's garage. And I was so scared. I had to quickly go in and quickly remove the evidence. I was 12 years old. It was a Chemcraft chemistry set, and I tore a hole in somebody's roof, and I didn't want anybody to know it because I would have gotten spanked. It's typical of for the good of the greater good. Yeah, that's it. Hot Fuzz. We'll quote from Hot Fuzz, for the greater good. I don't have an answer on any of this. I can imagine some alien sliding by Earth and taking a look at it and figuring out, well, there's a place I don't want to visit. Have you ever seen trash piles from Eugene, Oregon? Has this mountain outside the town. I watched it grow from a deep pit into a mountain in less than 30 years. I have never seen anything quite so gross. You can see it from the freeway. It's an embarrassment. And to realize it's trash. And then you go back to the laws of who manages trash in America, you know, with Southern Oregon Sanitation and AKA the Mafia. And it's just crazy what we do with our litter. And now we're finding plastic, pieces of microplastic in everything. Welcome to DuPont and better living through chemistry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, you know, Eugene, Oregon, I think, is in an unofficial competition with St. Louis, Missouri. And,
man.
you know, St. Louis is not going to allow Eugene, Oregon's mountain of junk to eclipse them. So they've built their own mountain of junk. And it's right next to a subterranean, well, it's part of a subterranean fire. The trash is on fire, and they can't put it out. And it's within 1,000 feet of a nuclear waste dump, where nuclear waste has been.
This is crazy making. And
well, I'm very serious about this. I'm very serious. We have a fire underground in Missouri, just outside of St. Louis, the West Lake landfill. It's on fire, literally on fire underground. They can't put it out. Water won't put it out. They don't know how to put it out, and it's expanding outward. And outward means it's going to be touching within 1,000 feet of a nuclear waste dump underground, where nuclear waste has been buried. Yep. That's the kind of stuff that's going on. And people don't know that. Now, are they going to wait till this radioactive debris is incinerated and becomes airborne? Are they going to wait for that? I mean, I just can't believe it. Why don't I've got a good job for the police. Stop policing and start digging this trash out. Start digging this radioactive waste out. Teach these guys how to run bulldozers and excavators and track hose and Terex machines, and let's start cleaning up and protecting us. That would be a good thing for them to do. I saw that you're concerned about this cop who executed a man on your website, docram.com, which links to Facebook.
Yeah, that was unbelievable. I can't believe the man that the police was crazy, and it's recorded, and he shot him in cold blood.
Yeah. Well, there was a post yesterday that I read. Well, I read it last night, and this man had a piece of pipe in his hand, a small piece of pipe, and it looked like it was attached to some kind of a can, kind of a silvery piece of pipe, and I couldn't tell from the picture exactly what it was, but some do-gooder called 911 and said, "Hey, there's a guy with a gun," and it was just this black guy who was mentally challenged, and he had this piece of pipe in his hand, and the cops came and executed him. He had a piece of pipe in his hand. So they felt threatened by this piece of pipe that this guy was walking around with. And I'm not saying it's a big piece of pipe. It's not like it was a club. It was maybe a foot long. So the cops, used overwhelming force. I believe they delivered 9 rounds, hit this guy and killed him. So, class, please never call 911 because someone's going to jail or someone's going to die. It's happening over and over. How do we get this message through? That the cops are not necessarily your friends. This is the kind of stuff they do. And how do they get away with it? Well, it's policy. We've been trained to do that. Someone looks like they might have something that might hurt us. Well, we're trained to shoot them. Whatever happened to the tasers? Tasers used to be out of control. They would tase and tase and tase. Well, now they just jump right past tasing. First, they used to tussle with someone who they thought was a bad guy. They'd kind of tussle with them, put them in handcuffs, and then they talk about it. They just said, you know what? It's kind of hard to do. Let's use a taser. That way we don't have to get so close. That way there's less risk of us being involved in a tussle. So let's just use the taser. So then the tasers were used at the cost of $35, $45 a click, and we were outraged. So now they just start shooting people. And they don't shoot once. They don't shoot into the ground. They unload their weapons. 10 shots? Did they really have to shoot 10 times? And what happens with those projectiles that miss? Where do they go? Would that be called collateral damage? This is crazy. That's why I don't live in a city, Rick. I don't want to be anywhere around this. You can be watching TV in your living room and get shot by a stray projectile from the police. Or the police can bash down your door. Oh, shoot. We thought this was 8th Street. It's 11th Street. Sorry, wrong house. And then the guy in his T-shirt watching TV with his wife, senior citizen in his 80s, has a heart attack and dies because they crashed in to his house. Who? The blue team. And then what happens to the door? When they bash down someone's door, how much does it cost to have a door repaired, replaced? Who pays for that? The guy who owns the door. I think you hit my button. I'm going to try to calm down during these few short commercial announcements. Rick Miller and I'll be right back. And I will tell you, I was reading a website about no littering. I'll tell you what it says and come back. I was just reading a post on the internet. And it says that the EPA announces a plan to remove former Manhattan Project nuclear waste from Missouri. And as soon as the advertisements stop covering this page, I can tell you what. There it goes. I stopped covering the page so I can read it. The Environmental Protection Agency announced new plans to partially remove toxic waste from the decades-old nuclear site in Missouri. A decision that highlights Administrator Scott Pruitt's vow to make Superfunds a 2018 priority. The proposed remedy would remove a majority of the radioactive waste linked to the Manhattan Project in the West Lake landfill and construct a cap over the area. And it's expected to cost $236 million and take 5 years to implement. So what happened was land or earth that was radioactive was dumped in this hole and outside of St. Louis, Missouri, and it's right next to the current trash dump, and the current trash dump is on fire, and it's heading toward this radioactive waste, and so they're going to excavate some of the radioactive waste, haul it away. So they're going to create a new radioactive waste dump someplace else. And I'm not sure where that's going. And I don't think they've listed where it's going. But they're going to haul it away. So, hey, rest assured, everything's going to be fine. It's just going to be relocated. It's kind of like dusting. You know, when you dust your house and you take a dust rag and you just rescatter the dust. You just move it from wherever it is to wherever it's not. Well, that's what they're going to do. And then they're going to put a cap. They're going to put a cap over the excavated area. Kind of like Chernobyl. Now, how long does concrete last? There's only one guarantee that you have with concrete when you use it. There's only one guarantee, and that is that it will crack. That's the only guarantee that comes with concrete. Rick,
well,
if we didn't make this mess in the first place,
I don't know where to go with any of this, because these individuals that did the nuclear power plant, that did plastic, are now the 1%ers in the world. And I think there should be war crimes on these people and what they've done to Africa, what they've done to St. Louis, Missouri, what they've done to Hanford. It's all in the name of making money. The Daiichi-like General Electric nuclear power plants, they all are leaking. There's like some 21 or 22 of them just on the New Madrid fault line. And they're all leaking, like Indian Point up in the Hudson River, like the one down in Florida. They all are leaking, and there's no solution. It is not cheaper power. There's way cheaper ways to generate electricity. But General Electric had to do this without a solution, and now here we are, left with holding the bag. And these individuals that did this without a solution are now the ones running our news media and the rest of it. I'm appalled that there is no accountability on these kinds of levels. And that Russian satellite that's coming down, what would have happened if that had hit in a city somewhere and killed a bunch of people without warning?
It wasn't bigger than a... It wasn't. It came down. It wasn't bigger than a school bus. You know, if that landed in a city, let's say Washington D.C., everything would change. Everything would change because they'd say, "Wow, it hit us," and they would stop it.
The problem is that congressmen have different rights than our civilians. They have a different kind of pension. They have a different kind of medical care. They're like extra special. And when I see this going on, and what I've done for my country, and what I walk around with my body and titanium, I'm angered. It's not right.
We'll be right back. Now, when we talk about the radioactive dump in Bridgeton, Bridgeton, Missouri, those residents have been fighting to have the nuclear waste removed from the site since it was identified in 1970. 1970. 48 years. Can you imagine that? And so they've decided that they're just going to relocate this radioactive waste. So I just wanted to let you know that that's how long it takes to get government moving. It takes a long time. Well, let's think about this. Rick, you mentioned these things, that the greedy individuals that caused most of our problems, I'm talking about pollution, contamination, pesticides, herbicides, destructive farming practices, destruction of our air quality. They've manufactured diseases. They've destroyed our public education system. Now, we are leaving this mess to the millennials, who we have dumbed down. They don't know how to do things. They don't know. We have eliminated the instruction that is necessary for society to continue from the public training camps. We have removed the trades. So the millennials have a tough time changing their spark plugs. They probably can't identify where the oil drain plug on their engine is. And yet we have left it up to them to clean up this mess. We're toast. We are absolutely toast, in my opinion. I can't figure out how this can be fixed with the damage that we've done, because we say, all right, so let's fix it. Let's train the new crop of young people. Let's train them in what they really need to know. Well, who the heck is going to do that? The millennials? They don't know. Rick, have I lost my mind, or do you think that this is somewhat accurate?
No, this is a serious problem. And notice that the individuals that did this took the money and ran.
Yes, they did. And, I don't know anybody who has a trash relocation service that says, you know what, I tell you what, we'll just get this big boat, and we'll have this raft, and we'll just take all this plastic, and we'll just bring it out to sea, because that's a great place. The ocean's big. We don't have to worry about it. We'll just dump it out here. Now what's happening, I don't know anybody who even think like that. It takes a real sick person. I don't even know if they're people. It would take a sick thing to think like this. A sick thing to say, you know what, this stuff is so dangerous. It's got a half-life of so long. We don't know how long it's going to last. It's a killer for forever. So we'll just dig a hole and put it there. And what's happening in Missouri is they're reassuring those who live in this area, hey, look, we are monitoring the groundwater. We're monitoring it. What the heck does that mean? We're monitoring it. Is that like what we did with the Tuskegee people? And we took people who had syphilis, and they said, okay, come on in, and we're going to monitor you until you die from syphilis? That's what we're talking about. Monitoring. Monitoring is not remediation. Monitoring is not fixing the problem. Monitoring is some minimum wage guy saying, I think something's wrong with this meter. Let me tap it and see if the needle straightens out. I don't know. I guess the meter's broken because it says there's radioactivity in the water. Is that what monitoring is? That's what monitoring is.
I read an article yesterday about a woman in Japan that is suicidal because she feels the state took her life away from her when they sterilized her because of radiation.
Yep. They did. They took her life away from her. And how about, and Mrs. Finelli and I were talking about this, how many people go to the hospital to have something done, like a surgical procedure that'll make things a little better. And then during the surgery, they introduce a hospital-borne disease that makes their life pure hell from then on until they die from it. That's collateral damage, I guess. It's beyond words for me what we are doing to ourselves, and we're allowing it to happen. It's like, okay, so Facebook. When I think of pure, disgraceful evil, I think of Mark Zuckerberg. This thing, Mark Zuckerberg, has invaded the privacy of darn near everyone by not telling them, look, if you want to be so stupid as to put all your secret thoughts and messages on our internet service, we're going to use it against you and we're going to sell it. This guy is an intergalactic disgrace, Mark Zuckerberg. I look at that guy's face and it makes me want to get sick. Guy wears a t-shirt. And then what does he do? He buys some property and he doesn't like the fact that his view is obstructed. So then he's a menace to all his neighbors because he wants them out of the way, because he's got enough money to buy up their properties. He wants privacy. He deserves privacy, but you don't. So what do we do about a guy like Mark Zuckerberg? What do we do? Well, it looks like they thought maybe 50 million people were affected by the Cambridge Analytica scandal. No, not really. There's like 40 million more than that. 40 million more. So most of them were in the United States. Then there were some in the Philippines, Indonesia, United Kingdom, Mexico, Canada, India, Brazil, Vietnam, and Australia. Those are the countries affected by Mark Zuckerberg. So what do you do when someone is a peeping Tom? What do you do? That's what he is. If he were to describe what he does, I think he should say he's a peeping Tom. He's a guy who's interested in learning your secrets, learning who you are, looking over the fence, looking through your bathroom and bedroom window. That's how I'd see Mark Zuckerberg. I can't stand him. And I'm going to dump Facebook. In class, I only use Facebook to let you know what we're going to be talking about. But there's a program and an application. There's some lines of code which I think are really cool, but I'm not sure if it works. And these lines of code, they were sent to me by one of your instructors. These lines of code you put in your Facebook page, and it goes out and destroys your Facebook information. Is that cool or what? So if you sent messages to others and then you deleted them, and Facebook says, okay, delete, yep, complete. No, not really. They still have them. They still have the pictures that you deleted. These guys lie. They misrepresent. They bury in legalese what they're doing with your information. They say, yeah, well, you have privacy controls. I guess we didn't do such a good job telling you where they are. It's kind of like if you have a Skype account and you sign up for it and you pay $2.99 a month and you want to make calls to the United States and Canada, unlimited via Skype, $2.99 plus tax. And then you say, you know what? I don't need to do that anymore. Just try to figure out how to shut that down, to keep taking that money out of your account. Just try to figure it out. It's impossible. You're going to have to go on the internet and search and look up how to undo the extraction of $2.99 plus tax out of your credit card account to shut down Skype's calling feature.
I have a situation. How much time do we have before we go? Do I have a few minutes?
Well, yeah, go ahead.
All right, so what happened is I'm with Farmers, and I've been with Farmers Insurance Car for 40 years, and a couple of weeks ago, Ray Thorne and I were picking up some wood, free wood, for the fireplace, and when I backed in, my window or rearview mirror that's sticking out of the truck hit somebody's trailer, aluminum trailer, that put a 2-inch scratch in it, less than a 32nd of an inch deep. It didn't even dent it. It just left a scratch, something that could be thinged. And that man was in his 30s, was going to beat me up because of that. And then he wanted money out of my wallet. Do I want to, you want to pay for this now and get it over with? How much you got in your wallet? I said, well, I have $100, but I'm not going to do that. That's what he wanted. He wanted $100. So what he did is he then escalated and was going to beat me up when the police arrived on private property. And that's because, thank you, Grace, some others called because this guy was nuts. And do you know what my insurance company did? They paid him $2,500 for his scratch. Now, I called yesterday saying, this is absurd. It's going to ruin insurance for everybody. And this man is usury. He's a criminal. He's taking advantage of the system. And I want to, they got angry at me because it's cheaper to just pay him off than to contest it because it's not right. Now, at some point, doing the right thing and drawing a line and saying, it's not about money anymore. It's about doing the right thing. And this man is wrong. I was hoping he would hit me. Why? Because he would have gone to prison.
Hold that thought.
For senior abuse.
Hold that thought. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us. RichardAllenMiller.com. Richard, A-L-A-N, Miller.com. Also, you can go to DocRam, DocRam.com. Doc as in doctor, R-A-M as in Richard Allen Miller. So, Rick, I was on the internet and I was reading this this post on a website, and it says, no littering. Fine $10,000 to $1 million. We strive to keep it clean and safe for our animal family. This includes space junk. If any litter is found on our farm, those responsible are subject to fines of $10,000 to $1 million. This includes cans, bottles, bags, balloons at $10,000 apiece, and space junk at $1 million per piece. All litter will be held as evidence. Poaching, road hunting, and trespass fines are $10,000 per incident per person. Signed, Vincent Finelli. So I posted that on the internet because I'm sick of other people having their way with their junk and being careless and reckless and not being concerned at all about what they do. And the word out on the street is the Finellis have a family of wild turkeys in one of their fields, and boy, it's going to be great to just kill them from shooting shotguns from the road. I recommend they don't try it. I recommend that, because the last time that happened, the last time someone poached, jumped our fence, and shot turkeys on our property, they ended up spread on the road, meaning the people, spread eagle on the road. It was a bad day. So the word now is we're hearing from our neighbors, hey, the talk in the village is, hey, you got some really great looking turkeys out there, and there are some people who are going to want to shoot them from the road. I suggest they don't try it. I will probably lose my temper.
Any excuse, man. You know what? If that space junk actually fell on your property, you could probably have an auction and get more than $1 million for it. I'll bet you.
Well, that's why I said...
like a meteor.
Well, that's why I said this includes cans, bottles, bags, balloons at $10,000 per piece, and space junk at $1 million per piece. All litter will be held as evidence. Now, since we're talking about this, I said balloons. This is a pet peeve of mine, of which there are numerous pet peeves. But one that really bothers me is the stupidity of mankind saying, you know what? Let's get these balloons, we'll fill them with helium, we'll tie them to a piece of ribbon, and we'll hold on to them for a while. Oh, there it goes. There it goes. I can't see it anymore. Looks like the wind took it. Now, what do they think happens to those balloons? Well, I'm going to tell you. They land. Now, when they land on the farms, the cows think, that's really cool. Haven't seen that before, but let me start chewing it. And you can kill a cow with one of those idiotic Mylar balloons. So we have to patrol our fields to see how many morons let go of the strings. Why? Why do we fill balloons?
You're turning into a grumpy old man.
Well, I am.
Locked and loaded. There it is.
I'm sick of it. I'm sick of picking up other people's trash.
Yeah. That's a cultural thing that is really kind of scary. We use our work release people to pick up trash here in Oregon, and it's embarrassing to see that kind of litter on the road and realize that's just carelessness. People aren't normally just throwing litter out their window, but they might have it in the back of their truck and it blows out. And they're not careful. They're not aware. They're not thinking. And at some level, it's got to stop at some point, or it's no fun to live looking at a sky that's all scratched up with chemtrails. That is another thing that is bothering me a great deal, because I am now noticing my health is related to it. I went down to Klamath Falls for a drive during Easter Sunday, and it's terrible. The aesthetics of looking in the sky now is a crime. What is a crime?
Hold that thought. We'll talk more about chemtrails. Everyone all set? Cocked, locked. Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us, the real Fox Mulder of the X-Files. I've seen every episode at least twice of the X-Files. I think it was fabulous. I really love the X-Files, and it'd be great if we could have more programming like that would make you think and challenge what you see, feel, and hear. Rick, there was, we were talking about chemtrails, previous hour. The sky's full of them. Every time I look up, chemtrails everywhere. And so maybe Hollywood is the answer. Maybe they are the answer because let's say they're trying to make a movie and the movie is set, I don't know, in the 1800s or maybe the 1950s, the 1960s, 70s, 80s. And they can't avoid showing the sky. And then there in the sky, you've got the chemtrails. So how do they make a movie, during the War of Northern Aggression, set in that period, or the Revolutionary War, or the golden years the best years of the United States, which would be the 1950s and 60s? How do you make a movie and show the sky and not show chemtrails, which would say, whoa. That's the late 1990s.
I have a better question. How about, since it costs $10,000 an hour to fly that jet, and I'm looking up at the sky, and there's $1 million right there in front of me in Oregon, and we know it's in Russia, we know it's in Finland. Who's paying for that? Okay. And what's its purpose?
So I've done...
It's $10,000 an hour to run a jet with jet fuel. And there's 12 lines going across the sky, 2 hours each. Who paid for that?
So the pilot gets in, the co-pilot gets in, they walk around through the aircraft and they go, wow, what are all these tanks in the... we used to have seats in these airplanes. What are all these vessels? What are they filled with? Who's filling them up? What are they filled with? And why are we flying in the sky?
The whole thing is there's a variety of different agendas going on. And so and for me, as a physicist, trying to ascertain which one is which and what's really actually happening is staggering. In terms of the effects of what that's doing to the trees in Oregon, all our trees in Oregon right now are showing kill on the very top of the tree, and I don't think it's Fukushima. Now, what's in that? Okay, well, we know there's aluminum and barium and lithium. Let's not forget titanium. Those are absolutely confirmed that's what they're using in nanometer particles to do something. What? Well, weather control? Yeah. To set up some kind of bio-API? Yeah. You know what you could do? You could be putting C60 fluorine molecules in there, but instead of using C60 fluorine water, H3O2, you could have used deuterium. Now you have everybody has that in their body as a weapon, and the evil Captain Kirk decides to pull up the screen and sees there's Vincent Finelli, and he pushes a button, and Vincent Finelli disappears, no forensics. That's how it works. Now, that's just one idea. What they're doing, the most probable, is creating a battery. It can be ignited with a laser, special laser, Lockheed, and then we have an ICBM shield. But the collateral damage is kind of like the waste product that we were talking about earlier in this earlier hour, with now we have a mountain, everybody's affected, it's affecting all life, and we have animals in Oregon that are now acting erratic. We have confirmed that when you drink out of these little plastic bottles, you're getting so much plastic in your body. It is a type of toxicity. And who's paying for those? Well, one of my crew of SEALs decided they were going to figure out who was doing it. And they found that those transparent white aircraft are coming out of Chilliwack, Canada, and turning around in Klamath Falls, Oregon. Now, that's just us. And that, yesterday, accounted for more than $1 million in fuel costs just around Grants Pass, Oregon. Now, when you do that globally, and I can only imagine what Missouri, we're talking about something beyond reasonable, and why is the public kept at bay and not had explanation of what's going on? How does that work? And who's doing it?
Okay.
And why is it being kept quiet?
So yesterday we talked about the Arab oil embargo of 1973 and 1974. And about that impacted the United States by removing about 5% of our available fuel, and it caused gas stations to limit their hours, to maybe 1 hour a day. It caused gas lines around the block. It caused the United States to lower the speed limits on some of the highways from 70 miles an hour to 55 to save fuel. It caused cities to shut off lights, in the cities, because to save fuel, we're all encouraged to save fuel, save energy. It caused the lights on lighting up the highways to be shut off in order to conserve. Well, okay, so let's call on our Arab friends to shut down the spigot. And if they shut down the spigot, it will cause Americans to panic. It will cause Americans to not be able to get to work if they are so fortunate to have 1, 2, or 3 jobs in order to make up for the job they lost. And it will cause an outcry of people saying, what the heck are you doing, wasting that fuel, just flying these endless miles and millions of miles with these aircraft carrying no people? Why are you doing this? And why are you wasting our fuel doing that? So maybe it's the Arabs that we need to shut down the spigot to stop these planes from flying. Or maybe the pilot talks to the co-pilot and says, wow, I can't believe all the stuff we got in the back. It's a good thing that we're ahead of these dispensing nozzles. We're breathing air that's ahead of that, by maybe 100 feet. So we're breathing fresher air. And then they look above them, below them, to the left and the right, and they go, whoa, we're not alone up here. There are a whole bunch of guys and piloting planes. And they're spraying, it looks like the same stuff. Looks like we're breathing what they're spraying.
It would appear...
Maybe if the pilots paid attention.
Yeah, that there's some kind of terraforming going on. This is a ICBM ballistic missile shield. And it works. And that's the fear of intergalactic war, with North Korea or China. And I'm going to tell you, it's probably going to come from Pakistan. It's probably going to be not Pakistan, but Pakistan losing some tactical nukes to a terrorist or a high school kid. And they're going to set it off in the upper atmosphere where it won't, the shield will stop it from hitting the land. And then we have the grid down. The whole thing is nuts.
Are you saying that the reason that they are spraying for the last, 20 years is to prevent a tactical nuke from going off in the atmosphere, or to protect us from that?
No, tactical nuke from going off in Missouri, not in the atmosphere. That's where it'll stop it. It'll stop it up above, but that spike will cause everything down, so it might as well have hit the ground. And so, but the collateral damage is like nuclear waste. Where is all that titanium and barium and aluminum going in your body? And or the trees? This is not right. Nobody is coming forth to give a straight answer. Mm-hmm. And if I don't know what's going on, what does that suggest?
So, is this one of your greatest concerns? This
it's right up there with Fukushima. Yes, sir.
That's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah, there's top 3 things. Yeah, chemtrails. Yeah, it's toxic, just like Fukushima is.
We can't get away from it.
We don't even have a say in it.
Well, I mean...
And look at the aesthetics of it. Used to be a beautiful day. Let's go outside and look at the clouds. I used to lay on my back and look at clouds. I don't do that anymore because it's gross. They even have names for these clouds now that aren't real. I think it's time that everybody starts calling up their local news media and asking, what do you know, and how come you don't know? Oh, and did you see that piece I posted yesterday, 2 days ago, about the script that all the different TV shows are using as a single script in mind control?
Class, if you'd like to see what we're talking about, go to docram.com, docram.com. When we come back, we're going to tell you what is happening with the news media. It's scripted. This is no kidding. Same words. It's worse than that. And we'll tell you what we mean when we come back. Dr. Richard Allen Miller is with us. Rick, you mentioned a post on docram.com about the news and how it is scripted. And would you share with us?
To create and generate fear.
Mm-hmm. Now, from what I read, the actors, the talking personalities, the script readers that we see on the news, they're not investigative journalists for the most part. They are actors, talking heads. They parrot what they're told to say, and they are told to dress a certain way. Don't dress in all blue. If you're a guy, don't dress in red. The violets, the purples, you gotta stay away from, wearing too much of that. And here is what you will say, and you will not deviate from this. You will not edit it. You will not add your own twist on it. You will say it exactly verbatim, period. Isn't that what they're told?
Pretty much. There's a national debate going on media ownership because of it, too. It's in the papers last night. In our Daily Courier, Medford's KTVL swept up in national debate over media ownership. Station's corporate owner forces its anchors across the country to read same script, false news promo. It's everywhere.
So, I used to watch television news. I'm talking about, in the early 90s. And, there was NBC, CBS, and ABC. And you could pretty much pick whichever guy you wanted to read the news to you. And the interesting thing was they'd have maybe the same top 3 stories. Most of the time they were in the same order. Sometimes the order would be different, between or among the 3 news broadcasts, the nightly news, if you will. But it was the same. And so you just picked whether you liked Peter Jennings or, whoever you really liked the best, and that's what you watched. But you could get the same news on all 3, because if you flipped from one channel to the other, you'd see that it was the same news. So how did that happen? And then I realized, wait a minute, this is all scripted. This is all sanitized. They're all saying the same thing. Not because they're all so bright that they picked the same news articles. It's because this is what they want us to know, or believe, or hear, or think. So I don't watch television.
It's terrible
news.
What's going on. You can't believe anything anymore. And it's all about making money. If they can scare you, then it's sensationalism, and that's it. There's no more Charles Kuralt.
Right. Rick, a little bit off topic, but I have in my hand right now, I have in the studio, I wanted to buy some replacement parts. I have something, a tire inflator, okay? And this is it's got maybe an 18-inch piece of red rubber hose. It's got an offset truck fitting on it so I can inflate the tires on trucks. And it's made by a company called Milton. It has a little round lens with a magnifying glass in it, and you press this lever, and it lets you fill up your tires. And it tells you how much air you put in the tire while you're inflating it, which is kind of neat. Well, I have one of these, and this thing is 2 decades old, 20 years old at least. And I'm going to go buy the replacement part for it because I've worn it out. Now, do we make any products other than this one that will let you have something, we use this every day, that you can use for a couple decades and then still have it work and be able to get replacement parts if you wear it out? It's not its fault that it wore out. I mean, we've just used this a lot, for literally 2 decades. I think that's kind of neat. Now, it's made in America. Now, is there anything that you can buy from China that's like this that will let you repair it? I don't think so. And I said to my son, we were talking about some tools, and he said, I don't want any of that Chinese junk. He said, I'd rather spend 4 times as much and get one that won't break. That's an exact quote. And I said, okay, so where are you going to get it? Where are you going to get these tools made in America? Because we don't make them anymore. You're kind of stuck, son. And who did this? Oh, Hillary Clinton and gang. Doc Ram's with us. So, Rick, I get calls from a guy by the name of Dane Wigington. Dane Wigington is one of our instructors here at USA Prepares. He's a really great guy. And, we talk on the phone and we broadcast together. And here's what happened. So he built this solar array, and he was off grid, and he's doing just fine. And one day he realizes that his solar array is not producing as much electricity as it used to. And he does a little digging. Next thing he knows, he figured out what happened. The sky is dim. The sky is dim because they're spraying stuff in the sky that's making the sky overcast, and he's generating, let's say, a half of the electricity that he used to generate. His system's working fine. Nothing has changed. It's the sky. The sky is blocking out sunlight. So he decided that he was going to let the world know what goes on and how he's figured it out. And that's what happened. That is what happened with Dane Wigington. And we owe him a debt of gratitude. And I'm going to give him a call and see if he'll have some time to come back on with us. I see that there's a caller, and I'm going to ask my engineer. I don't see what it's about. Am I supposed to take this call? Okay, here it goes. Dawn, you're on with Dr. Richard Allen Miller and me, Vin Finelli. How can we help you?
Hi there. I thought you guys could use some good news for today and possibly the listeners, too.
Is that possible?
Oh, I don't know, but I'm going to give it a shot.
Okay, go ahead, Dawn.
I have been a long-time listener and first-time caller. And my online name is Dawn's to You, too. And it's DAWNS, the number 2, and then the U and the 2, because I've been doing and following Dr. Richard Allen Miller for years, and I've been listening to you for years. And I have to say that part of the work that I've been able to accomplish has been a direct result of being a listener.
Dawn, let me ask you this. Where are you calling from?
Well, I'm calling from I'm in the state, I'm actually residing in Missouri, but we're in a state of emergency, if you ask me, but there is some good news.
Okay, let's hear it.
Dr. Richard Allen Miller had been speaking about the split light experiment at Princeton. And unbeknownst to any of you all, I've been, ever since I was a child, been studying and was followed kind of like accelerated learning, not exactly like Rick, but very similar. And I was not put in any program, so I was kind of a self-learner. Well, I kept being bothered by, I was in a think tank with Emory University and Presbyterian Theological College down in Atlanta. And we worked for about 2 or 3 years to see what we could see to do anything to improve things for the society and what was going askew. And we didn't come up with any answers. We just kept studying, and then some of us branched off. It's probably been that experiment that stuck out in my mind, and I kept hearing observer effect regarding that experiment. And so the listeners know what I'm referring to. It's during that experiment, it was repeated and repeatable to anyone that the person observing the experiment is changing the outcome of the light particles and waves. And this head of the project that was involved with Emory and Thurlow Industrials and some of these other big players, I was just a little nobody that paid attention and listened. And I think I found the possible place of where the pure energy comes in, and it's in that observer effect. So I thought y'all could use some good news that the mere fact that we're here and we're looking through our eyes and we're feeling with our senses and we're taking it all in, that energy is somehow not only coming in to fuel our bodies, to give us the energy, to give us the life, it's also recording everything it feels, sees, thinks, and hears, well, even before it thinks, and it goes back to like a continuum, and the observer is sending information in a pure, distorted form back to the original that sent us the life to be having the eyes, the ears, the nose, the breath in the first place. And honestly, the big topper on me being able to have this good news was my mother passed. And I was with my parents both when they both passed. And I can tell you there is a definite energy there. There is a definite connection to water and the breath. And there is a continuum that takes place even in the moment of passing, just like that takes place in the moment of birth. And I think there's a lot in that observer effect that's taking place that's uncorruptible by even the stories or the deception or anything else we humans do. Now, is that a little bit of good news to you fellas today?
Yeah, well, there it is. Glass half full.
Actually, my glass is both.
I
have my glass is half full and half empty, and I took both the red. My glass is half full and half empty, and I took the red pill and the blue pill.
So what happened to the white one? There it is, Miss America.
Well, it's an integration of the fact that there's a pure energy coming into form, and it may been actually. It may have actually been observed with the observer effect, which is not to be confused with the observer information that's made up after. One is just sitting there in pure energy looking at something. You're not thinking anything. You're not describing it. Sometimes you're just sitting there observing it. That energy has to go somewhere. Energy is not created or destroyed. It has to travel. It has to go along with some type of continuum. So as bleak as it looks all here, gentlemen, and I'm telling you, it looks bleak. And the way the children and the seniors are being treated, it's an outrage. And then all the people in between. But there is one sparkle of good news, is that I think that everything is getting purely recorded back to the source that's given us life, is running all 77 billion bits of ourselves around on this planet, and it's taking in all the information and everything that we're observing and that we're affecting. And if more people became aware of the fact that we're the energy and the information is second to that, they wouldn't be as tricked by AI and robots and artificial intelligence. That's my good news, gentlemen. How have I done?
Dawns, to you, I have a question.
Sure.
How did you find us?
Well, that links back to my mother again. She was listening to Joyce Riley and got us started and listening to the radio after she had been a long-time listener to Art Bell. Mm-hmm. And then I started spinning the dial because she wouldn't have anything to do with computers or Wi-Fi or anything. But she would let me turn the radio on the computer. Mm-hmm. So we started listening to you and a couple other radio networks regularly probably the last couple of years of her life. And she was in excellent health and lived to 94 and was sharp and was running her own show and living by herself until 94 when she passed in her sleep. But I happened to be there just as she was passing. I got there in the morning.
Dawn, I've done the same thing with my parents. And my dad introduced me to talk radio back in the 1960s. And my parents bought an AM table radio that was in my bedroom. And my dad said, "Why don't you listen to this?" And I said, "I don't know, Dad." And he said, "Well, I'll tell you what. If you're going to sleep, just leave it on softly." And I used to listen to guys like Brad Crandall, Long John Nebel, and graduated up into Art Bell, who I believe is the finest broadcaster ever. I used to listen to Art Bell on the 500-plus stations at night, and I would leave the radio on in the bedroom while I was sleeping, and I would hear it, and I would doze in and out, and he had some of his guests that were quite brilliant, and so this broadcast, the style of this broadcast is from Art Bell. Long discussions. No rapid fire, no point, counterpoint, no argumentation. I don't know this for a fact, but I believe that he only had on the air with him people whom he liked. And that's exactly what we do here. If we don't like somebody, they're not coming on the air. I don't care what the information is. And if we don't agree with their point of view, they're not coming on the air because we think they're wrong. And we're not going to give them.
Do you think I'm right, or do you think I'm wrong, or do you think I've got something that merits some research?
I think all of the above except for wrong.
Oh, good. I didn't do wrong today. Yay, one day without it.
Well, you're absolutely right. Energy is still with us. It just changes. And you're absolutely right about that. And you bring up some very, very interesting points. And I got to tell you, there's some things that I have to think about. I don't have an immediate.
I hope so. I wanted the listeners to take it in and feel it themselves, because another thing that Rick said that's right on target is it's unknowable.
And that's a word that my dad used several times in my life. And he said that sometimes things are unknowable. And I didn't know exactly what he meant when he said it the first time because I was pretty young. And I would ask him lots of questions. He was my search engine, if you will. Whenever I needed to know something that I didn't know, I would ask him. Sometimes he would say, well, we're going to have to look that up. Sometimes he'd say, you're going to have to look that up. Sometimes he would say, his father told him, some I'm going to tell you, the rest you got to know. So, and I thought about that yesterday. I miss my parents, and man, I wish they were here to help.
I wish they were here to ask.
Yeah.
And I knew my grandparents. So you're getting a break coming up. You want me to hold?
Yes, please do. Dawns, to you, are you still with us?
Okay. Still with you.
Okay. Well, I've got a question for you. And I always ask this question when somebody calls me at the farm and they say, hey, I'm a listener. My question always comes out during that conversation. So I thought, let's do this on the air.
Sure.
Here's the question. What can we do to make our broadcast better?
Well,
I've never gotten an answer. Now, I've only been doing this for about 5-6 years now.
I got an answer.
You're the first. You are the first.
Open a chat so that you can interact with the people in the chat you attract a wide variety of very astute listeners.
Okay.
And because of that, there's many times where there's information that might be thrown in during the broadcast where you could draw off of the genius and the expertise of the very observer effect of all these people. There's a lot of people that want to throw in with you. And they
are inclined to not call in, you're saying?
Right.
Maybe they are shy?
Well, this is the first time I've called in. I've listened to you for, I've lost count of years. And I never listened to you thinking of how this could be improved because I was so impressed with your guests. And I want to say something for the negative guests or negative things that you don't do. That's appreciated. There's a nice space created by a garden when you can come into it with your information and say what you got to say and throw it out there to be compared rather than attacked.
What do you mean the negative things we don't do? What
you don't allow guests, you said on the air just before the break, and we're running out of time, so I'm going to try to talk quick, is that, you don't have people on that you don't agree with or that you don't. Well, I got thrown into I lived my whole life that way, Vince, and I got thrown into the whole mix of everything I was avoiding, and I got dumped in it, and I had to survive. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I've got that blue and red pill in me that I never wanted to be exposed to half of what I've seen. Mm-hmm. So the way to deal with that is just like Rick says, you have to integrate, but you have to find the truth in it, and since it's unknowable, it's not in the information, it's in the energy, and it's faster than the speed of light, and it's instantaneous, and there's periods and points in your life where raw and organic breaks through all of this artificial junk. Mm-hmm. And it's still in charge. As bleak as it looks and as scary as it looks, just the fact that you're on the air trying to tell the truth and putting that energy out is about the greatest thing you could do. Adding the chat so that people could access or could put in a comment. If you've got detractors or somebody in there, I would advise ignoring them and just take the good out of that because there's a real want for people to throw in with you, Vince.
Let me share this with you, class and Rick. I call the network, and I ask to speak to Ted Anderson, and I call to speak to John Statmiller. And John Statmiller and I are buddies. He's going to be on with us tomorrow. And often I say, hey, you get any complaints about us? And the answer is always the same. No, we don't get any complaints about you. So then my response is always, I guess that means that no one's listening.
Wait. Can I interject on that?
And they kind of chuckle. It's always the same. This has been going on for darn close to 6 years now. I don't understand why no one complains.
Well, let me just say this. I borrowed a landline to call you on because I was more focused as a listener and what I could do to make your broadcast better. So I didn't want one of those. I've got a cell phone I didn't want. I had to buy because I had to buy for emergency reasons, and I got on a landline to call you to make the broadcast better. So that's kind of like what I'm talking about. If you can feel the energy and look what you're putting out, it's just as important as what you're getting in.
Dawn, I'd like you to leave your phone number with our engineer before you leave, if you wouldn't mind.
Okay, I'll give you my real phone number and not the one I borrowed for a clear
and I will call you, sometime in the next day or so. Okay, and if you don't get it, if you don't get that message through, call tomorrow, and we'll get it tomorrow.
I'd be happy to, Ben.
Dawn,
thank you. Let me thank you and everything you're doing. And Rick, thank you.
Oh, you bet. You bet. My pleasure.
Yeah. Wasn't that a nice call? Dr. Richard Allen Miller, thank you so much for being with us.